I'm Nana Akwe. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel, and it's time now for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, do you believe that mass migration is good for the economy? Now, earlier, former Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick told Camilla Tominey that it's taking its toll on the country.
Last 30 years, politicians of all stripes have promised controlled and reduced immigration, only to deliver the opposite. And the public are rightly furious at what's happened. It's placed immense strain on housing, on public services, on community cohesion, and it hasn't improved the economy. What we're proposing is that we return to the tens of thousands, but unlike previously, we have a cap. So Parliament itself votes for a democratic lock, so the public can have a degree of confidence, which they don't have today, that when politicians say these things, they mean it.
It's a shame that you actually need to do that, though, isn't it? They should be able to have an actual number. I don't think that's an issue. I'm just wondering why. Every target they've missed anyway. But the latest official estimates show that net migration in the year June 2023 was 672,000, and it's projected that the UK population could go up by a massive 6.6 million by 2036. I mean, can we sustain that? We haven't even got enough houses and everything else for the people who are here. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, do you believe that mass migration is good for the economy? Joining me now is former Sunday Mirror editor Paul Connew, the research director at the Centre for Migration Control, Robert Bates, Professor Azim Ibrahim, author and academic, and also my panellists, Peter Edward and also Claire Pearsall. OK, right, I'm going to start with you. Professor Azim Ibrahim, what are your thoughts on this? Mass migration, is it a benefit? Is it a net benefit?
Yeah, I think Robert Jenrick is absolutely right. You know, we really do need a cap on this. Migration is very good for the country, but only when it's controlled migration, not mass migration when you've lost control of your borders. You know, one of the reasons why the United States, the world's largest economy, has been so successful is simply because they've had a secret weapon, which was the H-1B visa, which is also known as the genius visa for people of very high skills, extraordinary skills, which they have basically brought into the country. We are unable to implement a policy like this simply because we've lost control of our borders. We have no control of who comes into the country and who stays here. And then as we enter the age of migration, this is only going to be exacerbated. We really need to get a control of our borders so we can implement a more intelligent migration policy that's actually going to benefit the economy.
Well, Robert Bates, now, a lot of people talk as though we need all the more migration. We keep hearing we need more migration, because we need people to do the jobs that the British people won't do, apparently. Is this true?
No, it's not true. And the key example of that would be the healthcare sector, which we're constantly told would absolutely collapse just because young Brits aren't going into the profession. If you actually look at the data on the UCAS website, UCAS reports, you see that the number of Brits that are actually applying to do those roles that we're told, you know, just would be left vacant if it wasn't for mass migration. There's thousands of people that are applying every single year and just being turned down. So we have the capacity already here to meet these needs, but that would obviously require investment. It would require training, and that's something that the British economy just doesn't seem to be geared towards doing at the moment, providing, because it has been weaned over the last 30 years onto cheap overseas labour.
A lot of people voted Brexit because, and I was one of them, I didn't like the fact that it felt like the wages were being pulled down because of mass migration. That was my thoughts on it. Paul, do you think, looking at this, that Robert Jenrick is right, that we do need to actually have a cap on numbers?
Sensible migration policy, of course, but Rishi Sunak is betting the farm, as the Americans say, in his re-election hopes, faint though they are, on his Rwanda policy, which is a gimmick. And funnily enough, the last Office of National Statistics survey put immigration at number 7 on the public's priorities, well below the cost of living, the NHS and social care, climate change and housing. So I don't think that Rishi Sunak can actually bear too much hope that Rwanda is going to actually stem the slump in the opinion polls and turn the electoral tide. Of course, we need migration. No one supports, in fact, gangs sending people across on dinghies, but we haven't got a coherent immigration policy. And also, we do need migration in many fields. We're an ageing population, like it or not, and much of the care sectors and in the NHS and other areas too, rely on migration.
Yeah,
but of course, the problem with migration, you also need, which Labour at least have seized onto, you need a better housing policy, because people
that's right.
in many ways are less concerned about migration, other than the fact that it plays into a housing crisis. So you need to square that circle.
Well, but Paul, what you said about Rwanda, though, a lot of people are saying that it's starting to work because there are elements of it that appear to be working. I'll get Claire Pearsall to respond to that, because Claire, what do you think about what Paul is saying?
Part of what Paul is saying is right, that you need a coherent migration strategy, and you need to understand where your need for workers is coming from, how many you need, and how long you need them for. And we've been there before when we've had a cap of the tens of thousands, and it didn't work, especially when you looked at the healthcare sector. You reached the limit on the number of people that could come in, and the health service was absolutely crying out for people. So you need to look at the flex that you have within your own system, and can you do it? Now, the government hasn't really understood what it wants its immigration system to be. And I think that we all are in danger of conflating legal migration into those coming over illegally. And they are very, very different things. They are very different problems to sort. Now, the Rwanda plan, on the one hand, could well be a deterrent. We don't know, because the planes haven't taken off. Now, I doubt it, and I've always been consistent on this. I don't think it's going to work. It doesn't have the capacity in order to make a difference.
But it's not about the capacity, is it? It's the deterrent effect.
But it is about the capacity, because if you are only looking at a 1 in 25 or a 1 in 50 chance of being sent there, then you're still going to make that journey.
Well, it's a starter, though, isn't it? And actually, it's not. It's going to be one of the solutions. I mean, after all, where do you send somebody who doesn't appear to have anywhere else to go if they fail your migration, your asylum process? Peter Edwards.
Yeah, I think we've got to keep immigration and asylum separate. But Robert Jenrick, the former immigration minister, is essentially running a campaign to be the next leader of the Conservative Party. So that's one of the reasons why he's talking about this, and one of the reasons why he did a heavily photographed trip to Texas. In terms of the actual policy of the British economy, however people feel about it, and there's a completely legitimate question about pressure on public services, school places, house building, doctors' waiting lists, and so on, the British economy is reliant on immigrant labour.
I don't know. No, it isn't. I mean, the British economy, I don't believe that, Peter Edwards. There's more British people working than people who come in from other countries to do those jobs. So I think that's a bit of a stretch to say that this country is reliant fully. I mean, do you feel perhaps...
Not fully, but heavily.
Sorry? Yeah, go on.
I said not fully, but heavily. We can't actually produce enough doctors. I mean, it's harder to get into medical school now, even with the right grades. So we're cutting back on medical school places, and yet we have on the far right people arguing in fact, we just need British doctors.
Well, hold on a minute. You're talking about the far right as if that's not quite true, is it? Because you think about it, right? You're going to somewhere like Africa. You're going to take the doctors from Africa. Is that better? Are you thinking that that's a morally better position than insisting that British people do the jobs? It's not really, is it?
Morally, probably not.
Well,
but if we're talking in terms of British politics, I mean, Dan Poulter's resignation, yesterday, or defection to Labour, I had a message from one Tory MP who's quite largely pro-Sunak, but saying that Poulter's defection is a disaster for the Tory party, and that combined with a disastrous local election results next Thursday will actually certainly spark another challenge to Rishi Sunak.
Well, we'll see. We'll see about that. But I want to get a zoom in on this mass migration because I often hear that people say that, the far right and this and that, and, we should be taking doctors from other countries. Surely that's worse.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is a multi-pronged problem. One of the reasons why we're importing such low-level skills people is that we have a population of our own that's basically many of them are unwilling and unable to work for a wide variety of reasons. In my home city, for example, in Glasgow, you have 90% of the working age population that are out of work. In other cities in the United Kingdom, like Blackpool, the percentage is much higher, around 25%. And the cost of this to the economy is just so substantial. So this is a multi-pronged problem, is that those low-level skill jobs in the care sector and the health sector, the local population is just unwilling and, to undertake them. So we have to sort that out from that front. We also have to have full reform of the health and social sector. There's just no other way around this. So this isn't just about migration. We're simply importing migrants because the local population is just not willing to do a lot of these jobs.
Well, Robert, it does seem that the bottom line is the net benefit isn't really working out, because it ends up that in the end, even though we think we're helping ourselves, at the end of the day, they're not a net benefit. Robert, your final thoughts?
Yes, and under this Conservative government, the immigration system is shifted overwhelmingly towards being made up of non-EEA migrants that official studies, the Migration Advisory Committee's own studies show are a net cost. The idea that migration that we're talking about is just doctors and it's just, highly skilled chemical engineers and things like that just isn't the case. It's low skill, low value, no real contribution, no boost to productivity, anything like that.
Right, so final word, yes or no from each of you. Do you believe mass migration is good for the economy, yes or no? Paul Connew?
What do you mean by mass migration? Controlled legal
yes or no?
Migration, yes, which is what Keir Starmer is
No, we haven't got time, so we're
for.
going to the news, so I just want a quick yes or no, if you can. So you're not sure. You're Robert Bates, yes or no? Is it good or bad? No. Claire Pearsall, yes or no? Good or bad?
No.
Peter Edwards?
If you cut migration, the economy will be smaller.
That's not...
It's not a yes or no.
Azim. And final word to Azim, yes or no? It's not good.
No, absolutely not. It has to be controlled migration.
Right, listen, thank you so much for all of your thoughts. Lovely to get you all on. Thank you so much. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio.